Kia ora guys, welcome back to the Black Jersey. My name's Max, I'm the host over here at this channel, and for today's video, we're going to be doing a bit of a preview for the Rugby Championship, so a big thank you to my patrons who are always bringing this video to you guys. I'm doing the video in collaboration with a couple of my fellow content creators, so I got Nick from the Rugby Punt-It and Lachie, who's known as Scrumbags over on Instagram. I've been following both of them for a while. About time I was able to return the favor to Nick after we did a bit of a collab last year on his podcast. So Southern Hemisphere rugby finally starting up, World Cup year. How are we feeling, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait for it. Thanks for having me on, Max. Good to meet you guys all. I'm very keen for this season to get underway against you guys.
Oh, good, mate. Just keen to rip in. And we've missed the Sappers. I've missed you guys in Super Rugby. We've had a couple of years of limited tests and interactions, but I cannot wait. This is such an exciting year for Rugby Union. We've got World Cup, bit of TRC action. It's going to be absolute ripper.
So now that we've missed each other, everything like that, we got the Rugby Championship all ready to go. We really want to hear each other's views. So I just want to hear from both of you, Nick and Lachie, like how will SANZAAR's different laws impact the championship? Just like a general overview and stuff.
You know, I think it's different for the Springboks in the sense that we're playing our domestic rugby up north. Then we've got guys in Japan and, you know, the squads all over the place. So the guys are used to adapting on our end, at least, to sort of the variations, the different refereeing styles. But I mean, when we come up against you guys, it's going to be I think, a bigger task for us to adapt it than it is from you guys.
Yeah, it certainly puts, I think, the Aussies and the Kiwis in a bit of advantage with a full season of Super under our belts, particularly around the way that I think the breakdown is being refereed in the Southern Hemisphere. You've got real different interpretations from the referees, like your Ben O'Keefe's with the strict regulation on rolling away, and then other Aussie refs who are potentially more liberal with how the ruck is policed with the side, hands, entry, that kind of thing. So I think we've probably got a bit of a leg up there with regards to how it's played, but also the amount of rugby and the body of work that Sappers are putting in abroad with the length of the URC season and the players and the French and English competitions. You're coming in with so much more match fitness. It's going to be such a big test coming up against a box back in a World Cup year.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with the laws. I'm actually not sure. Are we going to be playing with a 20-minute red card during the Rugby Championship?
Yeah, I think we are. It'll definitely confuse all the Kiwis and all the Sappers in particular because you guys play with the actual proper laws, whereas over here we have SANZAAR just trying to undermine World Rugby's authority. A lot of Kiwis are going to be saying the same old stuff like, should the maul be banned? Should the red card be 20 minutes around the world and stuff? We'll get onto that topic of the maul because over in South Africa, Nick, you guys love your driving maul, especially with Malcolm Marxon behind at test level. What are our perspectives on the maul being banned ahead of the Rugby Championship that everyone's talking about?
You know, I think the only thing that could cause a bigger outcry in South Africa was if they took away our biltong. You can't take away our driving maul. It's part of the Boks DNA. It was something we really relished in the 2019 World Cup. I mean, who can forget that rolling maul against the Japanese team? I don't see why it should be taken away. I think it's been an integral part of the game for decades. And to me, it's making the game softer to remove it.
Yeah, I totally agree there, man.
Totally agree as well there, mate. I think with regards to the rolling maul, it's such a point of difference for our rival codes in that you've got a platform for your attacking set piece, whether it's continuing the maul, any variations of that lineup, or how you unlock your back line. So I think defenders just need to get better at sacking, and there needs to be more provisions for the defending side to be able to do so, to encourage those little trick plays. We saw just in the Black Ferns test on Thursday, some really good variations at the front of the line out. And then things like, 2011 World Cup final, put it through the middle and give it to Big Tony Woodcock. Those are the sort of things we should be encouraging from set piece, and mauls give us that ability to get variation in.
You're spot on there, Lachie. Like Tanya Kaloni-Vali's try, the kind of innovation that she was showing that the coaches had given her, that's the kind of mentality Kiwis need to embrace more often. But like, maybe as we lean over to South Africa in a few minutes or so, maybe this is more of a question for you, Lachie, because another one of the big ones we want to get to before discussing individual teams, has the popularity of NRL been negatively impacting fan perceptions of Union? Nick, as a Sapper, you guys don't really have too much league and stuff. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on this one as well, bro.
So, I mean, most of what I get out of context of this is from your guys' pages. You know, we see that there's been a bit of a battle going on. You know, but we don't get it on TV here. I've honestly never even seen a game. I've seen some highlights and some videos pop up here and there, but I don't know why you guys would be struggling with the fan attendance. I don't know if it's the new style of the competition, but yeah, from our side, it's something we don't really get exposed to much.
Yeah, I guess from an Aussie perspective, guys, because the NRL is so dominated by Aussie teams, there's 16 teams in a 17-team competition. So our market is massive, and the competition around winter codes with AFL, with soccer, with league and union, and the emergence of basketball in Australia has been really big in muddying that market. But with regards to whether NRL's popularity is a real concern, it's a huge blow up. There's an entire media empire in Australia that doesn't touch rugby union because they lost the rights to it. So much news is negative, and the way that union is framed is either it's dying or it's stealing players. It's garbage. The crowd numbers are comparable across league and union, and if you want to look at a competition being skewed, mate, we've had 2 games just this weekend in the NRL that have been 77-0 and 64-0, or no, sorry, other way around, 74 and 66-0. So there is no way the league is anywhere up to the proportions that they talk themselves to be. I think union's in a good place, and we'll touch on it in a tick, but mate, the best thing that could have happened is getting Eddie Jones and all the hype back into Australia. It's been massive for our game.
Yeah, that's great to hear from you. Really interesting that you're talking about that from that Aussie perspective as well, because that narrative's been sold to me quite a fair bit there, bro. So we'll get back to Aussie in a minute because of most of my audience, they're from South Africa and stuff. We definitely need to hear Nick's perspective on the Springboks right now. So I've got 4 main topics that I think we can pick his brains for and everything for you guys in the audience. So Nick, first off, mate, Jean Klein, the Irish lock. He moved over to Ireland to play for Munster, 8 years ago or so. He got capped by them in 2019. After 4 years of being ignored at test level, he's been added as one of the 23 total forwards in a 41-man squad there, rather. And he's the only uncapped player that Jacques Nienaber has actually got on the team. So I was wondering what your thoughts on Jean Klein being in the team were. Like, is he just there to have his brains picked for analysis on the Irish, or is he like genuinely getting picked and stuff? What do you reckon, mate?
You know, I know everyone has a lot of different thoughts about Rassie, but Rassie is also someone that you can never know if he's pulling him in now to pick his brain or if he's got a larger plan in mind for Jean Klein. You have to hope that he's got a realistic role to play in the squad, because it wouldn't be fair to call him back, make him give up a further opportunity later to play for the Irish, and then he's just one test in the Rugby Championship. It's interesting as well because we haven't really lost the locks that we went to the 2019 World Cup with. We've in fact added Marvin Orie in there already. Salman Murat had a bit of experience, and Nicholas Janssen van Rensburg, who have all now seemingly fallen out of favor. And they seem to be looking to add that with the squad size being increased for the World Cup. It looks like we're going to take an additional lock. Jean Klein had a fantastic season for Munster. Him and Archia played together, and we know how Rassie enjoys a bomb squad. So that's a good combination that could come off the bench for the Boks. But yeah, I'm quite excited to see what he has to offer, and I'm fairly certain he's going to be a starter here against the Wallabies at Loftus.
Yeah, that's an interesting take there because, Sneeman's had so many injuries. Klein's definitely been a player that a lot of the Irish fans have had their eyes on and stuff. But, as we were talking about before, Klein's like one of those players. He's having like this year-round season. All of the players in the Springboks, aside from the 9 guys playing club level rugby in Japan, like they'll be having a fair bit of fatigue and stuff. So heading into the Rugby Championship, what's your kind of perspective on player load management, tiring them out? Like, is the Rugby Championship perhaps going to be a chance to wrap the guys like Etzebeth and Cotton Wool in your eyes?
So I actually had a chat with Ronnie on our podcast about this last week, and we said the Springboks actually are maybe a little bit undercooked at the moment, because we came back from their November tours and they played through December till mid-February in the Heineken Cup. But then they were off for 8 weeks. They didn't touch the training field. They weren't involved. These are now your main contracted players. Then they came back for maybe 4 rounds of URC. The Storm is a little bit longer, going all the way to the final. But the bulk of that squad has now been in camp with the Springboks for 6 weeks. I think we're the only international side that's done that. They've been here in Pretoria, training together for 6 weeks, Monday to Friday, getting the weekends off. And also crucially, they've been training here for 6 weeks at altitude. So I think the boys' fitness levels are going to be well. They're going to be well conditioned. And I think the Rugby Championship's the perfect time to get that match cohesion again.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing that they're training at altitude and stuff. Sounds like a very Springbok thing to do. Go into the conditions before the World Cup. Saru, though, I saw a report from them maybe yesterday or something like that, but it says they're running at a loss and stuff. So before this World Cup, like, is this cause for concern, or will a World Cup kind of be the best way to fix that balance that was created by the post-World Cup unfortunates that came from the pandemic and stuff?
Look, I think the pandemic definitely had an effect on the finances of Saru. I know there's the Bulls and the Sharks both asking for back pay of about 23 million Rand because Saru reduced their income. But at the same time, Saru's been funding the Stormers, and that's what's kept the Stormers from going the way of Wasps and Leicester and all of those sides. So they're a bit aggrieved about that. But the big thing and where this loss comes from is that when we joined the URC, I don't think it was widely published that we actually weren't going to get any income from that for 2 years. So we had to pay about 330 million Rand to enter the competition. But we're only from the 2023 season kicking off, going to start earning income from broadcasting rights and all of that. So it was a big capital outlay that hopefully a World Cup campaign, and then next season, then it can right the ship. But it is definitely, unfortunately, operating at a loss at the moment.
Yeah, that's all good, mate. As well as the fact that the 18 players not based in South Africa, we all know, like, we can probably name the starting 15 off the top of our heads, like Kitsoff, Mbanambi, Malherbe, Etzebeth, Diaga, on and on and on and on. But as for the guys who I examined in my depth chart video and stuff, like, I'm starting to get scared, like, if there's a lack of cohesion for those second choice and third choice guys, like, particularly in midfield. I had an examination, and Creel and, sorry, not Dialendi there, Esterhazen, they have yet to play a full 80 in the green and gold together and stuff. So, like, is that a concern at all? Or do you reckon that, like, all that time out, that relaxation that you've discussed with me is going to offset kind of that imbalance and stuff with match cohesion and stuff, like with the 6-week camp and all that?
I think cohesion in the 10, 12, 13 channel is definitely going to be a problem if we suffer some injuries there. I mean, there's no doubting Dialende and are our frontline combination. But as you say, Esterhazen's had limited minutes. I don't think him and Jesse Creel have actually even started a test together. And I think when was injured last year, we lost a good opportunity to build some depth there. You know, so that's definitely a bit of a concern of mine. But I do think with us sending 15 players to New Zealand this evening, you'll see a split between Dialende and you'll likely see Esterhazen starting in Loftus and trying to build that up a little bit now. Same with Mani Libok. I mean, we were looking at Johan Goosen, a player that's been injured on and off, hasn't worn the Bok jersey, and that took away a year of prepping Mani Libok to step up should something happen to Pollard, which has now happened.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dodgy story there with the injuries and stuff. Before we go into the Wallabies, though, for you guys in the audience, I was just wondering, Lachie, if you have anything as an outsider to say about Springboks, something that we haven't picked up on, just anything of note that could perhaps you know, give them a good shot at the Rugby Championship.
Yeah, and one directed really at you, Nick, with regards to an internal perspective on Boks. I've always been really curious about who the heir apparent is around the 9 jersey. There's so much talk around Pollard and who fills in if he's injured. But is there a real succession plan that you see in the wake of Faf de Klerk, and how does that look in this season if Faf goes down?
Look, we joke about it quite a lot here because we seem to select more scrum halves. I think only Argentina outdoes us with their hookers, but we have 5 scrum halves in the squad at the moment. So you've got Faf de Klerk. Last year, Jaden Hendrickse was our preferred choice at 9. I don't know if you guys have seen much of Grant Williams. He's a very pacey young number 9. He will probably get an opportunity against the Wallabies as well. And then, I mean, you've got Kobus Reinach, who for me should actually be our second choice and should be coming off the bench in most tests. He's fantastic for Montpellier, and his time's been limited in the Bok jersey.
Yeah, like when I was talking to you about like those player management minutes and stuff before, like I was wondering potentially if de Klerk's gonna get wrapped in cotton wool and stuff for the rugby championship, you'll get to see Williams and Jantjies start, whereas obviously Hendrickse was the first choice 9 last year. Reinach's been in that squad since what, a decade ago, I think he debuted in 2014 or so. But it's a bit of an interesting situation there. We'd better move on to the Wallabies for timing and everything. So, man, you'll have a lot to say there, Lachie. Eddie Jones now in charge. How do you feel about that one, mate?
Oh, I mean, the hype around rugby, as I mentioned just in the intro, is infinite since Eddie came back. And it's not a knock on Dave Rennie. I had a huge amount of respect for him as a coach, but what Eddie's able to do with regards to channeling the hype from 2 decades ago and the aura around the '03 World Cup, successful Bledisloe in 2002, and backing off that golden era of Wallaby rugby, it feels like that's coming back. If not on the field, then certainly off the field at the moment. So that's massive. But you might have heard across a couple of news channels about him doing stuff like bringing cattle prods to training, both figurative and literally. You know, he's revving up the boys and all the commentary from past players, especially in the broadcast about, you know, what he used to do on the paddock, how he makes you feel, the impact that he has as a man manager is huge. I think it's comparable to Rasi over in the Springboks, the manner in which he can connect with players and really drive the game. So it's hugely exciting. And I think you just look at his body of work with Japan and with England, what he was able to do in relatively short times over there. I think that's going to be happening in Australia soon. But we'll have to wait and see how we go at Loftus. It all starts there.
I mean, even like if the stuff on the field doesn't go too well, I think he's still doing a good job at getting people to be interested again because what I noticed with England, he had a really good relationship with the marketing team. He encouraged them to do mini documentaries on the players and stuff. He repeatedly, over and over again, hires sports psychologists to manage like mental health and stuff. Then, like right before a game, he just goes ballistic at them, just loves the insults, just gets them angry so they can smash people and stuff. I love Eddie Jones, but something that Dave Rennie had a problem with, it was, you know, getting that team cohesion and stuff. He didn't have a clue who he was selecting and stuff, but even though Eddie Jones seems to have a pretty clear-cut idea based on the selection and stuff, one problem position I wanted to ask you about there, Lachie, is fullback. Like, is it going to be Hodge? Is Ben Donaldson going to remain the guy to cover 10 and 15 off the bench? Or is he going to go with Tom Wright? Um, but yeah, like, three quite unclear choices. Like, Reece Hodge, man, he can play everywhere. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Tom Wright has the skill and stuff, but I'm not sure like if he's truly been coached well enough to reach his potential and stuff. Like Tom Wright is a guy with genuine talent, but what do you actually think is going to happen over at 15, mate?
Yeah, it's kind of Tom Wright's to lose at the moment. I think that's the general feel around the country's rugby community. He had, for by and large, a really good season down with the Brumbies. Went through, obviously not his best game in the semi-final against the Chiefs. I think he'd probably be the first to put up his hand and say that, but I think he's probably earned it from the season that he's had in the past couple of years he's had developing as a Super Rugby player and then into the Wallaby space. To my mind, I think Reece Hodge covers that 23 role perfectly. And it almost lends itself to a 6-2 split with him doing a bit of a Billy LaRue and filling that role across the whole back line. And then I wouldn't be too surprised if we're seeing the Wallabies take 6 forwards up to Loftus and just sending them into the jaws of defeat at Loftus and having a pretty tough time up there. But what a way to get your squad together and really test Tom Wright at altitude. And worst case scenario, you've got Reece Hodge who kicks at 60 metres anyway, kicking at Loftus.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a pretty sensible selection idea there. Really well put together by you and stuff. Old mate here, Nick, might be a bit grumpy that Reece Hodge has such a range and stuff. It'll be quite interesting to see. We were talking about the Springboks before, though. Obviously, do you reckon that has like a post South African Super Rugby made Australia soft? I kept getting these messages and stuff in the wee tab of people asking, like, what's your thoughts on that?
It's a funny one. I think it's been to our detriment in the short term. That's for sure. We see so much change around how our game is played when we're not touring South Africa, when they're not coming in. I used to love going to Reds games and having the Stormers, the Bulls, the Sharks come down because they were always really physical, set piece oriented contests that tested us at ruck time. And the biggest part of losing the South African teams from Super Rugby, at least from what I can see from an Aussie perspective, is our ability to secure a ruck, either attacking or regaining the ball back, has dropped. So our clean out has dramatically decreased, in my opinion, since the Sappers went, because we haven't had to be as physical at ruck time. The speed of the ball's different in Trans-Tasman games, and I think that ruck security has been lacking since we lost the box. So I think to that extent, yeah, we've probably gone a little soft, but also it's just, I miss those contests. I miss that rivalry that was built through Tri-Nations rugby, and the sooner we can rekindle that in some way, whether that's through new competitions, the World League stuff, whatever they want to do, I think it's better for rugby to have the Saffers playing more regularly against us.
Yeah, definitely, man. The other side of Eddie Jones, of course, we do need to talk about that before we get Nick's perspective on Australia as a South African and stuff. Players dropped: Harry Wilson, James O'Connor, Filippo Daungunu, Jake Gordon, Caden Neville. Like, ruthless selection choices. I had guys messaging me saying like, "Yo, what's up with James O'Connor?" Harry Wilson to me has the talent and stuff, but Eddie Jones clearly just doesn't appreciate his work ethic, things like that. Do you think that all these ruthless selections and stuff, like, they're gonna pay dividends, considering like the easier, I guess, in quotation marks, side of the draw that people are talking about?
Oh, I mean, potentially, but I think so much of what Eddie's doing is framed around having almost 50 players to choose from come World Cup time. So what you'll see is those players who have been missed out on, sure, they've missed out on a TRC squad, but most will be travelling with an Aussie A team to play against Tonga over the next month. And then I think you'll see some pretty creative scheduling for the Barbars tour coming up in the Northern Hemisphere. I rate there'd be more than a few Wallaby contenders in there. So they've missed out for now. Some of them are tough calls. I thought Caden Neville was really strong through the year. Harry Wilson's got back-to-back best players at the Reds for the past 2 seasons and is really in a important part of his career where he either steps up or he probably looks abroad in the near future. So I think we're seeing a really exciting time where Eddie's going to foster depth over just your really gun starting 15. We want a huge pool to choose from and be a super competitive side of this World Cup.
Yeah, those are pretty fair points. A lot of food for thought and stuff, specifically as there's been a change in coach and stuff. As a South African, Nick, like, what have you seen in the Wallabies, just to feed off what everything Lachie said and stuff? How do you reckon they're tracking and stuff, mate?
So I first have to say, poor Eddie Jones. He ends his career for England against the Springboks, and now he starts his Wallabies career against the Springboks. So he'll definitely be looking for some redemption when he takes us on at Loftus. You can be assured of that. But I must say, from the Aussie side, and I know a lot of South Africans are listening to Eddie's podcast, and you touched on that, and you said, he's all about getting the public involved, getting it out there. And it's stopping this gatekeeping around the game. And I think that's great for Australian rugby, that the guys are going to start getting excited about it. They're going to be engaging with the head coach like that. And I think that's an important aspect of the game, especially with you guys talking about the popularity contest that's currently going there. I also think the selection of Michael Hooper and naming him captain was an interesting one, because that obviously sets up quite a battle with Fraser McWright in the Lucies there. But he's gone for a lot of experience, trusting James Slipper as well. I mean, an incredible number of tests there. And yeah, I think you guys are going to be tough to beat. I think it's great that we've got you in the competition now, and you guys need to do us bloody proud on that side of the World Cup pool.
It's an exciting time. And I think just really quickly on that co-captaincy that you touched on, first time it's ever happened for the Wallabies. And I think it's a good move because it lends itself to one of them being able to come off the bench and replace as they transfer in and out. So that continuous stretch of leadership is going to be super important for what's largely going to be a pretty new look squad with new combinations, at least in the forward pack. So having 2 co-captains in that forward mix, essential.
It kind of also gives me like the vibes of Kennedy Simon and Luahei Demont for the Black Ferns and stuff from last year, like giving that a go and stuff. Like Simon, because she'd been injured and stuff, she'd replace Sarah Hiddeny at 7 and stuff like that. That would be real interesting to see and all that. Over in Australia, like, I kind of start to wonder, considering Fraser McWright's form and the fact that Slipper's a prop and stuff, are we going to see Hooper coming off the bench the minute that Slipper gets replaced at prop and stuff? Or is Slipper just going to play like extra long minutes and stuff at prop, considering, there's no out-and-out proper cover at loose head with Angus Bell injured, and, Taniela Tupou's just come back from injury to be the reserve tight head prop and stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to be real interesting. For you guys in the audience, we'll get over to talking about Los Pumas after the ad break, so stay tuned for this one. Welcome back. Second half of the show, all ready to go. Got some really solid advice and insights from Nick and, of course, from Lachlan so far on the Rugby Championship that's about to start in a few days. We've covered the Wallabies, we've covered the Springboks. Now we need to cover Los Pumas, who I'm going to attempt to do a bit of an analysis video on before the championship starts if I get the time and stuff. They've got a huge 48-man squad with 5 hookers, 4 halfbacks. So I want to ask both of my guests over here, like, is Michael Cheika planning to rest and rotate to decide his third choice players, considering a lot of the Pumas also have a similar situation to South Africa that Nick talked about with playing a bit of a year-round season? Like, you know, Pablo Matera gets a bit of rest playing in Japan. Buffelli plays in Scotland. Totally different scenario. What do you guys reckon?
Yeah, it's very Checker. From remembering his time as the head of the Aussie coach, he liked having a big squad to whittle down, and he's the kind of guy that plays his cards really close to his chest. So I very much doubt you're going to see any of what they pull out of the World Cup through this TRC period, expecting a lot of second stringers. And if I was him, your Buffellis, your Montoyas, even your Sanchez's, whoever's playing, I'd be wrapping them up in cotton wool. You're starting 15s for those games against England and Japan.
Yeah, I definitely think he's got an eye on the World Cup with that squad, because to Argentina, you know, they don't have great depth, so it's very important for them to ensure that they wrap their main stars in cotton wool. I think they will have realized they've gotten a very, very good chance at this World Cup with the pool that they're in and their path towards a final. And I think, you know, that can only be realized if they can have their top players fit at the tournament. I'm surprised there's not more locks included, though, in case Lavanini has another indiscretion.
You had to go there, man. I just don't even want to talk about that. The guy's literally received the most cards of any player in history, like, what, 3 reds now, 7 yellows. I know for a fact that it's 10 in total. Pretty sure it's 7 yellows and stuff, but I do know for a fact, everyone in the audience, it is more than 10 and stuff. You know, other players do come to mind there, eh, Nick, like the Matiases, Alamano, Moroni, Orlando. What do you reckon, though, of like depth building and stuff, though? Like, Creevy became the first Pumas Centurion against the Springboks potentially. You know, that could happen if he plays all 3 games during this championship. Julian Montoya, like Lockie's totally correct. 79% of the minutes a hooker so far this World Cup cycle for Argentina. What do you guys reckon about the chances and stuff? Like, do you reckon he's actually going to do it? Do you reckon it'll help him decide maybe the right winger and everything as well?
Yeah, it's tough. It's a kind of a broad remit across this period, because I think obviously they want to give Creevy the 100. I think it's hugely important for Argentinian rugby that happens in Argentina as well. So I think he's a very compassionate guy, Czech, and a very passionate bloke too. So that'd be at the forefront. But with regards to everything else, I mean, he could be pulling out an entirely new 23 every game, and I wouldn't be surprised. It's essential that they get a hype around Creevy for the 100, and if they're winning home games for the TRC, I think he'd call that a successful campaign.
Yeah, I definitely think he's going to get the game time to get that 100th test. I do agree, though, that there's going to be a lot of squad rotation coming up. But I think he also offers a wealth of experience coming towards the World Cup. And we know, you know, here we call it those dark areas, thanks to Rassie. But Augustine Creevy, he knows how to get stuck in. He knows how to drive that forward. And I think he's going to be crucial to that pack's cohesion coming into the World Cup.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting and stuff, especially with like injuries, all those older players. Like, they still have, I think, 6 or 7 guys that were born in the 1980s. Discipline, though, Nick, we'll get onto that straight away, mate, because you mentioned that a little bit earlier about our favorite number 5 and stuff. I think Lavanini's got like 50% of the minutes at lock. Do you reckon there's a chance that discipline could be their undoing potentially if they end up repeating 2019 or something? Like, they did have that same experience in 2019. It's going to be really interesting to see, especially against England with Steve Borthwick taking that set piece first mentality. What do you reckon of the likelihood, mate?
Yeah, I think, you know, anyone that comes up against Los Pumas, they're going to target Lavanini. They know he's a hothead. They used to do it to Bucky Sporter. You know, they want to get under his skin. 3 red cards, the most red carded player of all time. I mean, then you look at Angus Kremer. He's currently serving a 5-week ban for a clean out. Now, the Argentinians don't have the best discipline record, and it's something they need to get on top of. I mean, at some point you need to ask your question. Okay, Lavanini, he brings this to the pack, but if he's bringing that and then gone for 40 minutes because he's been yellow, red carded, and then, you know, is it really worth taking that risk? It's a conversation we've had about Ivan Roos. You know, he's a little bit reckless here. So, you know, discipline matters, especially in these big showpieces. And if they want to mount a real challenge for silverware, they're going to have to sort that out.
Yeah, Nick, I totally agree, mate. And if you look at those players as well with a so-called track record, you'd almost be wanting to target someone like Pablo Matera as well, who is known as a leader amongst the team, but also someone who can blow up. I think we've seen a pretty clear platform from players like Dan Coles getting in his face and being able to mess with him. If you're in a quarterfinal against the RGs and you decide to seriously target one of these players, it could make or break their entire campaign.
It's almost like a dust. Sorry, there. Keep going there. Sorry there.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to look at a matchup of Los Pumas versus England. Mario Torje is going to get under Lavanini's skin with ease. There's no doubt about it. And as Max said, with the set piece focus of Borthwick, that's a huge red flag for the Los Pumas that they're going to have to take into consideration.
Yeah, good stuff there. Good points. I'm sorry, I nearly got the there. Eh? Man, like discipline and stuff, it's no good and stuff for Argentina. Like you see players like Matera, you know, having the push and shove. I think that Argentina being such a passionate team, it's both their biggest strength and their biggest weakness. Like for you guys in the audience, I'll discuss this in more depth later on. Like they have just this ability to pull a rabbit out of the hat, get this massive historic victory, but then they can also do like this thing where they just can't back it up the next week. Like we saw this in Christchurch. Matera came back home to the Crusaders and stuff, his home stadium, took out the dub against Mo'unga, against other Crusaders teammates like Moody, Newell, Taylor, stuff like that. Then we also saw things like the Hamilton game the following week. Old Colsey giving him a push and the shove. He won't shake his hand at the end of the game and stuff. With the discipline though, do you guys also reckon that, like, just off the top of my head, potentially it could give them a chance to have a crack at guys in England like Joe Marler and actually be a good weapon for Los Pumas as well?
I think it feeds into, and we touched on it briefly, but what Czech offers as a coach already. I mean, he has the teams that he's taken to his northern and southern finals domestically, your Leinsters and your Waratahs. He did that through so much motivation and so much passion, so it feeds into itself. And if it gets a roll on, they could easily, with their side of the draw, find themselves in a semi-final and in a winnable position. I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility that they can top their pool, or that if faced with a quarterfinal against any of Australia, Wales or Fiji, that they're in with a chance. So come semi-final time, if you've got an entire nation behind you, the way that they fed into it, like in 2015 and 2007, I would hate to play the Pumas in the semi-final. That's almost a worst-case scenario. If you've got through that tough side of the draw with the South Africans, Kiwis, Ireland and France, and you're up against that, it's anyone's game.
100%. I think if they want to use it as a weapon, though, they're going to have to be able to use it in a structured way, not these blow-ups. They're going to have to actively put that presence forward. Like you see Eben is huge, and he's definitely terrorizes the other players, but he does it within the bounds of the law. So they're going to have to focus it in and actively target that aggression in a constructive way, not just popping off here and there. Otherwise, it's just going to implode for them.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky thing, like we said before. First off, though, Nick, how do you reckon they can gain the momentum to top their pull at the World Cup? You know, Los Pumas, South Africa, 2 games, they're going to be ferocious. Do you reckon that's going to give them a big boost and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, if they can mount a decent challenge in the Rugby Championship, it's going to give them great confidence going into that. I think they believe they can take England. I don't think there's a lack of belief. And England, I mean, it's a new coach. You know, never know what they're going to bring. But Argentina, a bit more settled side, I would say. And it's theirs to lose, I feel, at least.
Okay.
Not being a supporter of English rugby.
Oh, you love having those pops of the English, eh? You guys in South Africa. It's so beautiful to see, man. Like I was saying, what do you have to add to that, Lachie? Nick's got some good points there, eh?
Mate, a world in which England doesn't make it out of their pool again is my favourite world. I would love nothing more to see that the Poms truly either of you two lift a World Cup than the Poms again. Nothing. I'll give them nothing. But look, it comes down to whether they can have those banana slip game. And I think it all depends, their campaign, on their battle with Japan. Because if Jamie Joseph can get his boys up and you get your Michael Leaches and your Labuschagnes running hard and creating those historic Japanese World Cup moments, then the RG's campaign can spiral before it even starts. So that's their banana skim game. If they win that, they're in a quarterfinal most likely, and it goes from there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a ride or die kind of situation with that pool. Like Japan and Argentina can both just beat anybody on their day. Steve Borthwick is trying his very hardest to just copy old mate over here, take a leaf out of Razzie's booklet, make that short-term change around with a set-piece dominance, but it's not working so far. They're having a tough time defending expansive rugby. But speaking of expansive rugby, we're definitely better head over to the All Blacks and stuff. Kiwis over here, we just lose our minds and we still say that it feels like a loss if there's not enough expansive rugby in a game. So another thing as well here in New Zealand, I've got a bit sick of, like, it's the whole so-and-so should be in the team kind of attitude and this kind of couch coach mentality we've got into. Like, other nations aren't as badly affected by this. Like, over in South Africa, man, you guys, Nick, you know exactly who your starting 15 is. You know as well who some of the third choices are for particular positions. Like, Ninab has been terrible at building depth, but he's done it in the hooker, the 9, the 10 positions at least. So at least it's like in the key decision makers for the team. But over in New Zealand, we're having this really bad coach couch mentality, like I said. What do you guys reckon on what's going on over here?
I think from our perspective, like you say, our coaches have had a stubborn insistence on who they're selecting through the years. So it's sort of become a thing to us. We know these guys are there. Whereas you guys haven't really had the best time with your coach. There's been a lot of calls in the media for his head for this. So guys are less trusting in his decisions. And I think that's a possible breeding ground for this sort of talk. If the coach isn't certain, the fans aren't going to be certain, and it's going to create that conversation.
Yeah, Nick, 100%. Across our side of the ditch, seeing a coach be appointed, as much as I like Razor, seeing a coach be appointed before Fozzie's gone and that sort of grey area that it creates, there must be so much tension around selection. And do we look past the World Cup? Do we trust the man that's in charge now? I think that's really debilitating for a squad and a team environment. But I think also, the Kiwis, as far as rugby concerned, you're almost suffering from success. You've got so much talent across the board, particularly in these backline positions. I think the pack's more settled, in my opinion. But some of the debates, and I'm sure we're going to touch on it in a tick, but around your centres, around your fullback, I think Kiwis are so good from what we've seen at picking the best athletes. But I'm not sure if you have historically, or at least these past 10 years, picked the best positional players. So I'm really interested to see how that feeds in for this TRC campaign.
Yeah, you're pretty much on the money, like, with my thoughts there, Lachie. Like, when I was on Nick's podcast last year, like, we had this attitude about the All Blacks having the talent to win and stuff, but not like the coaching and stuff like that. Like, we saw with Brad Moore as the attack coach, just these hands down the line plays. I've exposed them before and stuff, like how they probably weren't up to scratch with the rest of the world, things like that, without being like a bully to the coach and stuff, if you know what I mean. The guys like David Havili cop a massive amount of hatred from the online comments and stuff, yet they continue to play well every week and stuff. But, we do need to talk about the midfielders. We do need to talk about fullback. You're totally right there again, Lachie. Dallas McLeod sustained a concussion courtesy of that yellow card in the final. ALB got suspended for enacting this and stuff. Havili's injured. Mark Talia on the wing, he's injured. Will Jordan's sticking home with migraines that kept him out for a fair bit of the season already. Less defying Anuku's staying home with a sore calf. Like, he's done nothing bad. It's just like sore and stuff. Narawa, Stevenson, McKenzie, Bodie, Geordie, all picks for 15. 12's a bit of a mess without Havili there as well, especially with Quintu Paia ruled out of the World Cup. What do you guys reckon is going to happen back in fullback?
Just from what I've seen through Super Rugby, I think you almost have to lock in McKenzie at 15. I think what he offers in attack and as a second playmaker is huge, especially without Havili, who I have a huge amount of respect for. So if I was in that position, I'd probably be looking at McKenzie in a 15. Geordie Barrett would be my stopgap 12 without that Havili and Tupaia option. And then you've got people like Stevenson, Narawa, who are able to slot onto these wings. I'm not sure what the availability of Seba Reese is if he's out for the rest of the season, but that's a huge loss as well.
Yeah,
As an
but
attack.
he's done his ACL as well and stuff, so he's gone for the World Cup. Same injury as Tupaia. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, mate, grim, yeah. And Tupaia as well. I mean, a fantastic midfielder. So I think just for continuity, you're probably going to have to look at a Geordie Barrett in the midfield. And then, I mean, your 13, oh, geez, there's so many options, but you've got a huge injury list and it didn't quite hit me until just now. So I'm very interested to see how you pan out.
Yeah, you guys are definitely suffering with a big injury list at the moment, which is never ideal. And I think going into the Rugby Championship, we're all going to be holding our breath that none of us suffer any further injuries to our squads. I'm known for being a big Beauden Barrett supporter. So I would love to see him getting in the starting lineup, whether it's at 10 or 15. But I must say, Geordie Barrett is a stellar fullback. I definitely rate him highly as well, and he's as hard as nails. So I don't think you can really go wrong. DMAC, also excellent player. You guys really have some options there, which is great. And they're all, good creative playmakers, which lend to the style that the All Blacks tend to play.
Yeah, it's almost like the idea was for McLeod to be a placeholder for Havili and stuff, because Havili, Tupaia, Moody, those three aren't in the squad, but they've been in the environment while injured and stuff. Like I've had my wee inside sources and stuff telling me, oh yeah, they're just at the captain's run, blah blah, just like hanging out with everyone, not training or anything. So it's almost like they're gonna go down a path of Havili and Ioane in the centres when he's back, then go for potentially McLeod and Enor for the Argentina game or maybe the Australia game or something like that in Dunedin to give the Crusaders duo a crack at it and stuff. But the biggest talking point I think that we have to discuss over here is we need to pick old Nick's brain for this one here again because, man, we are yet to concede a try off a driving maul since Rob Herring crossed over in Wellington right in front of my seat to win the Irish series and stuff against the All Blacks. What do you reckon about that fact there, rather? And what do you guys, as outsiders to New Zealand, reckon of what Jason Ryan's done with the forward pack?
Look, I think if we look at the test last year, then Nelspruit, I think your guys' pack suffered quite badly. And then you guys bounced back at Ellis Park, and it seems to have been an upward trajectory from there. The coaching impetus has definitely had an effect. You can't deny that. I mean, it's been a remarkable turnaround. And it just shows you guys are now being well coached in the forwards. Your maul defense is great. Why are we even speaking of removing the maul? It sets up a great contest. We're going to face you guys. I guarantee Jacques Nienaber and Rassie are going to know that you guys haven't conceded a maul try and are going to do everything to make sure that they can break that ahead of the World Cup. It's a fantastic component of the competition on the field. And yeah, something to be very, very proud of that you haven't conceded a maul try because they are quite commonplace.
Yeah, Nick, you're bang on, mate. And I think you only have to look at what the Crusaders have shown with regards to how strong set piece and how you can attack so effectively off first phase play as well, because we've seen it through this year in particular, and you can probably talk to this more, Max, but from what we see, the Crusaders are so successful at setting that platform, either scoring directly or from the initial set piece phase out wide from that platform that you get. So I think Jason Ryan's got his fingerprints all over that, and what he brings to the All Blacks is invaluable in that regard. And I cannot wait for the Springboks All Blacks games. Obviously, I want to watch all my Wallabies and see those games, but that is just going to be massive.
Yeah, I'm very lucky I got tickets to Auckland before it sold out and stuff. We'd better talk about that tension you were talking about before, though, Lachie. You were mentioning the grey area and stuff, though it's good to be organised with getting the future head coach in and stuff. And not just waiting around because then we had to settle for Fozzie and stuff. Aussie had to settle for Rennie. Freedom Cup holders since 2009 is the All Blacks' current record. And Bledisloe Cup record holders, yes, I know, I see that look of failure on your face there, mate. Bledisloe Cup holders since the year of Tom Hooper's birth, 2002. Do you guys reckon that these two records can be overcome at last?
I've got a couple of things to say about these records for starters, and I'm sure you'll back me up here, Nick. Freedom Cup. I know that the structure of Southern Hemisphere rugby doesn't lend itself to it, but in those, 13 years, 12 years since it's been played, they've all been 2-game series. And I hate 2-game series. I just despise them. So many of those you win at home, it's back and forth, all those amazing series where the Boks have gone down and won in Dunedin and then it's gone back to the Highveld or to Ellis Park and it's been won back. There needs to be a decider for those.
Yeah.
So that just irks me beyond reasonable doubt for the Freedom Cup. And as for the Bledisloe, yes, we've been pantsed. I'll put my hand up. But 5 of those as well have been draws, and I hate that too. Let's get them 3-game series. Let's get more high quality rugby and let's have a real winner every time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And then, I mean, you're talking about a 2-game competition. This year, it's a single game. We already know the Springboks are targeting the New Zealand test. They're sending today 13 to 15 players over, as well as some of the coaching staff. That's a game they targeted in 2019. They're targeting this year. And since it's a one-off, you never know. I mean, the points difference that you guys like to get against us in one game that topples you over in the 2-game contest going to be a little bit more difficult this time.
Yeah. It's a bit of a funny old story, the whole 2-game series. I was having this debate with my old man saying maybe if they do want to do free-to-air test matches and stuff, it could be the deciders for the Freedom Cup and for the Bledisloe and stuff. Do something like that. But to finish off this wee podcast for you guys in the audience, what I'm going to do to finish us off is I'm going to ask one final question to both Lachie and to Nick. And I'm going to ask you both to, as you're ready and stuff, whenever you're ready to answer it, who wins the Rugby Championship for 2023 in this condensed 3-week tournament, and who has as well the most to lose out of competing in this wee shortened league, and what impact could that have, of course?
I think from my side, we're likely going to know the winner of this competition after the first weekend, because if the All Blacks drop a game in Argentina and the Boks pick up a win against the Wallabies, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to take it, and vice versa. I think the Wallabies have the most to lose. You guys have 2 crucial home games. Eddie Jones is going to be trying to look for that cohesion. And I think if you guys don't get 2 home wins, it's not a good start under Eddie. And I think you've got a good opportunity for it.
Yeah, you're right. We'd have the platform laid out for us, but I think the narrative that Eddie's constructing is that, yes, we want to win these games, but ultimately, if he gets through to a World Cup final, he's already won. He's done his job. So he'll write these games off. He's good in the media in that regard. And I think that if you flip the script, it's actually the Kiwis that have the most to lose. So you go over in your first week, if you lose that banana peel game, there's a massive pressure on the coaching staff heading into a World Cup. We talked about that grey area before. And if you don't beat the Boks at Mount Smart and you lose that home game, if heaven forbid there's a Bledisloe flip, which I seriously doubt in a 2-game series, but if things like that eventuate, there's going to be riots over the ditch. It's going to be an absolute nightmare heading into World Cup. And for what it's worth, I think the Boks are actually in a really good position, because training for 6 weeks at altitude, as you mentioned, us sending a pretty new look Wallabies team over there, you're in a pretty good position. And I know that the Boks like to kick on after a TRC to win a World Cup. So I think that's the lay of the land at the moment. What do you reckon, Max?
Well, guys, I reckon they're pretty fair takes and stuff, and I'm really grateful that if you've both come on for this podcast and stuff to get onto the YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. As I said, you guys in the audience, I'm going to give the links to Nick and to Lachie's media platforms down below in the comments section and stuff like that, in the pinned comments, so make sure you keep your eyes and stuff. Thanks so much for coming onto the podcast one more time. I reckon we'll probably see something like an Australian win of the competition. That's my hot take to finish off the video. But you know what? You guys can decide the rest of it down in the comments. So let me know what you think. And yeah, one more time, thanks so much to my guests for coming onto the podcast. Cheers, guys.
Thanks for having us, Max. It was lekker.
Thanks very much. Awesome time. Appreciate it.
No worries, everybody. I'll see you later. Cheers from Max.